You're listening to 96.7 FM WERA LP Arlington. This is Comedy in Progress. Hey everyone, and welcome to the show. This is Comedy in Progress. I'm your host, Pete Maybe, and this show, if you're not familiar with it, is similar to In the Actor's Studio, except in the comedian's crappy studio apartment. We're going to be interviewing local comedians and entertainers and just let them get out there, tell their stories, do what they got to do. And I'm joined today by the very, very important, to me at least, this isn't cronyism. I don't think so. Certainly not favoritism. John Papagiorgio of Papa's Basement. John?
Hi, buddy. What's
up? Hey,
up?
man. How you doing?
Not too bad. Yourself?
Hey, thanks for coming in. I'm doing all right. John, thanks for joining. You've been doing a lot in this community. From what I've heard, I met you about a year ago. We met at a writing seminar with Mike Sachs, also from the area, Silver Spring area. And I noticed you were very early. And I thought, this guy...
Yeah, you're one of
this guy's interested.
You're the only other person there. I've learned, not that I do much in the artistic community. You play it up a lot. Most of what I do is actually work as a T-ball coach. But in the comedy community, I've noticed a lot of people, especially when they're on the lower rungs like us. I don't think I'm blowing anyone's cover here. Not exactly finding us crawling
really?
off the screen
public?
of HBO. Yeah, we're just doing a little public radio here. I've noticed that a lot of people love to adopt the whole artist attitude, including the I'm going to roll up 5 minutes late type behavior.
It's a good attitude to have, though. If you plan on being somebody, I think it's a good attitude to have. Maybe not the 5 minutes late.
I like alpha dogging, being a little prompt. It puts you in a position of power. That's why I was pissed
I can tell
when I met you. And I was like, there's someone already here. All right, then.
I did. I was the earliest guy to show up.
Beat me at my own game. But, and then we jawed, and we were there, I think, 45 minutes before anyone else.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I walked around. I had a couple smokes.
And by that time, we had become spit brothers.
We did. And you joined me for the show. I found out that you had Mike on your show.
Mike Sachs,
and that kind of made me a little excited.
I figured
practically turgid.
It was the one thing I could do to impress.
It was very cool. I was like, how did you get this guy on your show? And I'm sitting next to you. Why are you in this class?
And a year later, you learn just how little it matters to get anyone on a podcast.
And it does and it doesn't, because it keeps going forward. It's all about who you know and what you can do and who you can help. And right, John? I mean, you've been doing this for a little while. I mean, you've gotten a couple breaks, right? You've gotten a couple opportunities. You've been doing this for what? You have your podcast. I don't know if I mentioned the Papa's Basement podcast.
Papa's Basement podcast I started in 2008, I believe, like August of 2008. And I started the show because I was working a 9 to 5. And I actually give a shout out to our community station in Fairfax. I was working a 9 to 5, and I'd listen to the local Fairfax station play Don and Mike every afternoon. And that was like all I looked forward to. And after a while, I was like, you know what? Don talks about being a millionaire. He had sex with Pat Benatar in the day, allegedly. Like, I'd like sex with Pat Benatar's daughter.
Do you think he did?
I could use a couple millions. Yeah, I think back in the day, radio was really powerful. And before MTV, it was kind of like region to region based. And there's lots of stories about...
That's making a lot of sense.
Jocks having to get, like you would get... I don't know, like Electric Dog or whoever was doing afternoons in Cincinnati, a bag of Coke. And then before you know it, he's playing the latest Journey cut for you. And that's just how it worked, payola. So, yeah, I think if you were a female pop star in the day, sure, why not throw it around a little?
Yeah, if you were coming on the radio stations.
They hadn't invented AIDS yet.
You guys are super popular? Yeah, they're basically rock stars in their day and age.
Yeah, so if Don is playing, he might have been in Chicago at the time, for God's sake. Like, he's ruling the Midwest. Mm-hmm. I think Pat Benatar is going to give him a little. What's the worst that's going to happen? She needs a shot in her butt the next day? You're all good.
Here's an orange.
Yeah, exactly. Walk it off, kid. So, so I figured I really want that life. I'm not cut out, real original thought here. I'm not cut out to do this number crunching. I'm so much more.
What were you doing before that?
I was working
when
at
you realized you should have.
National Student Clearinghouse, which
I have
is
no
every
idea what
bit
that is.
as captivating and enthralling as it sounds.
That's not like Publishers Clearinghouse. You
I
guys don't
got
do
that
anything
joke
fun like that?
so many times. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm sorry it happened.
We didn't have a single oversized check in the entire domicile. Yeah, I would look at student data.
Mm-hmm.
And I would delete certain records from it, and this happened ad nauseum. I would take a huge pile of red folders that contain this data. I would enter it, and I would dump the folders in the done bin, and then I'd go see if more folders appeared. And if they hadn't,
Just data entry, huh?
raw data entry. And if they hadn't,
Lord.
I committed the cardinal sin of talking to my friends and screwing off online, despite the fact that I was doing everything great. And I was like, you know what? This is not a job I care to hold. And I want to do something I love. So I took radio lessons. It was a logical conclusion as far as I could.
These were schools. What kind of schools were they? Were they
Colleges.
they were like colleges?
It was colleges, yeah.
And you were probably college age at this time, right?
About 25, 26.
Did you ever think you could make $1 out of this?
Out of radio?
Oh, no.
Oh, out of the other
No,
thing?
let's not joke around.
No.
Yeah.
The answer to that's no. No money in radio. That's why I'm doing it for free. I mean, if you're going to do it for next to free,
but the
just
change,
embrace
but the
it.
data entry, I mean, yeah, that's got to have a lot of money in it.
No, it had nothing. I was making low 30s, and I was just happy to be out of my mom's house. Because, you hit a certain age, you had the same experience. You get the hell out, and it's mind-blowing that you have a place to drink in peace, and a girl wants to come over and have sex with you, and you don't have to time it for, like, when your mom is out visiting your dad's grave or something like that.
Yeah.
Just profaning the
Saturdays.
house 5 ways to Sundays. Yeah. She's coming home, like, tears on her cheeks, like, why does this place smell like tuna? It's, none of that. You could just do whatever the hell you wanted. So I was sacrificing my entire Monday through Friday.
Well, I'm just curious about this job because I'd never heard it before. But what's this? Did you know any of the college students? Was this a college area? Was this a college that was in the area?
No, man.
Something
this
he
was
was
like
doing?
national. A lot of colleges were submitting their data to us. We were a nonprofit.
Oh, yeah.
And
Never
so,
mind. I
yeah.
thought you were just working for one of these
no.
schools and
Data
you were
was
doing
getting
data
dumped
entry. And I
from,
was like, no, you should be, one, you should be getting paid, and two, you should be getting it left and right.
Well, I was instead
You're like the
getting,
most important guy.
I was instead
at that
getting
moment.
lectured that I was, and I quote you, out of my seat too often. And at that point, I was like, you know what?
That is absurd.
I stopped hearing that in high school.
Yeah.
And I'm a grown man. You'll bleep that. And at that point, I just broke, and I was like, I'm going to cash out my 401k, and I'm going to
At 25.
Yeah, it was like $9K, and I cashed it out, and I was like, I'm going to use this to pay my rent for a couple months,
That's when I started mine.
and and I'm going to, in the meantime, this will actually be funny. I at first was like, I'm going to become a personal trainer, and
That's
I'm
not
going
funny
to
at
use
all.
personal training
I can see that.
to loosen the restrictions on my time, so that then I can get into radio. And what
Wait.
happened? What? No,
You need to do personal training to get into radio.
I thought to myself,
I had to fight a couple guys.
look, I'm at work 8 to 5.
This isn't Bloodsport.
I'm waking up at 6:30, and yet I'm built like Bolo Young. People say black don't crack. Bolo Young don't crack one lick. Sir.
That dude still goes hard.
Good Lord, he is chiseled. So
Look him up.
I feel
like a lot of people don't know that name.
No, I'd wake up at like 6:30. I was passing out by like 11. I'd get home 5:30 maybe if you throw the gym in the mix. You have what, 2 waking hours?
5?
During no, I'm saying you're home 7. Let's say after your gymming's done. You're going to bed at 11. Really, for 4 hours, I'm staring at the wall like Private Pile after they soap beat him. Like I just
Major pain.
My psyche couldn't take it. Don't you bring in the weigh-ins, boys. My psyche could not take it, man. I don't want to sound like some dramatic flower. Maybe there's guys out there.
You didn't make your food for the week?
I would, actually.
And then post about it?
I didn't do the latter part, but this predates social media. So I would get home and I was like, my God, I have dreams outside of this. And really quickly, you could see yourself just waiting for the weekend. Someone should write a song about that. I think it'd be a big hit. And, wait, that was working. I am a chimp. So
I'm still going to play it.
Yeah, it was, you croak for 5 days. You watch yourself age. You know that you're dying day by day.
Mm-hmm.
for 2 lousy days when what? You can get drunk and wake up at noon?
Don't you feel like you could take those 4 hours and make something of them?
I couldn't. I'm not saying better people couldn't or could. Yeah, couldn't. I could not.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, yeah, I have a hard time getting there too, but yeah, I work the 40.
I think you're a more disciplined man than me. I couldn't. So
This
I
is
was
true.
like, I'm going to quit, but I need a new income source that won't drain me as much. So while I'm waiting to get into radio, I'm going to become a personal trainer. And I did 2 weeks at the Washington Sports Club, lovely facility, and they start you at about $6.50. I think they actually are able to pay you lower than minimum wage because they say that you're there.
Yeah, what year was this?
It was like 08.
Really?
Yeah, and they're like, you're
650,
able
08.
because
I
you're
guess so.
going to be personal training and making money that way. It's the same way restaurants able to say, hey, you're making tips, so we get to pay you 94 cents.
People tip trainers? I've never had a personal trainer.
No, well, they're going to pay you like actual money. Like if you get
Oh,
out
yeah,
there.
yeah, you hire them. Sorry.
I didn't.
Yeah.
If I said tip, I didn't mean it. I'm tired. I'm tired from my day of nothingness. So I
They
did
could
about a
tip you
week
if
and a
you're
half
really
of
good
that.
or you're really buff.
And they really lived to break you down at that job where they're like, we want to just introduce you to the customers of every shift. Well, I'm going to let you in on a secret. The guys at 6 a.m., they're there to get in and get out. They don't give a damn
They
to
don't
get
need a personal trainer.
And the people during the afternoon are about it because it's just housewives that are bumming around. They really have nothing better to do. And then the
You
evening...
could probably find one or two, right?
Yeah, and then the evening people want in and out. So my life was some days waking up at 5, other days going to bed at midnight, and everything in between. And let me
pretty
say,
hectic.
for the record, you have never seen a dustier building than a gym. I would walk around with a towel and clean
Just
your
around your waist.
treadmill. Exactly. Pulling a Bellini, Kids in the Hall reference. I would walk around, towel everything off, and I'm not exaggerating. Within 8 hours, it looked like the tomb of King Tut again.
That is a
So
terrible
I just-
filter system.
Yeah, I just said the hell with this, and I quit 2 weeks
You
in.
hear that, Washington Sports Club?
Yeah,
Clean
clean
up
your
your
air
act.
filters. And I got a lucky break a couple of weeks later where an old kind of friend of the family was a program director at a really small station in the area. Program director's kind of, like, I want to say
Kind
de
of a big
facto
deal.
boss of a radio station. Yeah,
Sure.
they're calling the shots. And he saw the name and he hired me, and I thought I was in. I thought I was in for the ride of a lifetime. You know, this is like...
They're going to give me a show.
Yeah, exactly. This is Jack Nicholson getting his first bit part, and 3 years later,
Yeah.
I'm getting my
One
nose
flew.
chopped open in Chinatown. Yeah, except radio really took a dive with the. I want to say
As soon as you joined.
yeah,
Coincidence?
I couldn't have. It was like being a pilot on September 10th. I could not have timed it worse, and it. Whenever
But you had been dreaming about this for a little while, right?
yeah, exactly.
It's something you'd been thinking about. You
Well, in
were
the
like,
back of
this
my
is,
head-
I don't understand why I'm not doing this.
I don't want to sound like droopy dog here, and maybe some people just don't
You
know
should.
how to
Let's
articulate
get
their
there.
dream.
Let's open up.
I was obsessed with radio since I was in 6th grade. I started listening to Stern, like so many of us. I was just obsessed with him by like 7th, 8th grade. I was listening to Don and Mike, that kind of junk. And I couldn't get enough of it. Like I just wanted to listen all day, every day to talk radio. And it went away.
It just spoke to you. It was
spoke to me,
something-
but it was nothing I thought I could do professionally. That, I guess, is the sad thing in my story, if you will. Like,
I think that's a sad thing. In
hopefully I'm not alone because I want
I don't think you're alone.
I want company with my misery.
A lot of people find things late, but personally, I don't think you found this. I don't think you found this too late.
I was in my mid-20s.
I think your show's doing good.
Sure. So I just worshiped this crap, but when it came time for a job, never once did I think getting to radio. I do a communications major. I went to college, the one college that would take me. All of my friends that went to Virginia Tech, they were doing comp sci because they genuinely liked comp sci. And I had no comprehension of
shaking my head.
adulthood. I don't know if, again, it's a sign of being weak-minded or what, but you grow up as a kid, just people are telling you get good grades, listen to your teachers, there's right answers.
It'll all fall in place.
There's a lot of not asking, well, what do you want
What
to
happens
do? Yeah, what do you
After
want to
that,
happen?
Yeah.
I simply thought you got good grades and made money off that. And I really had that level of comprehension. So people ask me,
only.
what do you want to do? And I'd be like, a lawyer. Lawyers make money, right? I'll be a lawyer. Like my parents joke, I talk a lot. I could be a lawyer. They say that. Maybe they see something here.
Sure.
So that was it. And I loved history in high school. So they're like, hey, what major you want to do? And I was like, I'll do comp sci for the money and history for the love. And I thought I had this figured out, man. The entire time, downloading Howard Stern episodes so I could listen to it down at Blacksburg, Virginia.
Sitting in your dorm room.
Listening to the same episode 2 times a day, sometimes 3 times. Like, I'm not exaggerating. Just
Really?
playing it. Like, it was the heyday of Napster, so I was downloading classic Howard Stern clips. And it was my life. I adored that junk. And yet, to me, it was no more... It was the same as, like, music, which I also loved, but I had zero interest. Like, if I was like, snap your fingers, become a drummer tomorrow, you're Lars Ulrich now. Aside from the obvious reasons you wouldn't want to be that. Like...
The obvious reasons.
I still would say no to that. But if you're
Napster?
like, yeah, snap your fingers, you're Howard Stern, I'd be like, well, yeah, other than the schnoz and the Louis XIV hair, count me in. That sounds like a sweet gig. And it took so many years for me, I guess, to feel like an adult. Like, I went through school. I, had some personal stuff happen that knocked me off of my academic track. And that was kind of the first time where I was like, my God, there's more to life than school. There's a whole world out there that you can work in. Yeah. And I limped through school the rest of the way. Instead of getting out at 21, I got out at like 25. And yeah, the instant I learned how little my degree and how little my current employment was bringing me toward happiness, I panicked. And I started asking real questions of myself for the first time.
Talking about not being alone. I mean, that's certain. I think that's what a lot of people have as soon as they finish school.
Well, I think there's just poor answers given to this day to people. And I would say for me, you can punch me in the balls for saying this, as an artist, from what you would consider a trustworthy source, like as much as I love Office Space, what in a lot of ways is what Peter is told is the answer. Like, well, yeah, you're going to hate work, but get yourself a hot girl and have sex with her, and that will make you feel fulfilled. And I felt even Office Space, which I love, that was such a pat answer. That was such a cop-out.
It's not a great answer.
I mean, I don't want to sound like
fulfilled,
Cruella here, yeah, but I think looking for someone else to be your answer is a bit of like building a castle on sand.
No, that's a terrible idea.
And it's the
that's
same.
That's like put a baby in her.
It's it's the same.
It's not a good idea.
The girls get it from the other side with
answer.
like Sex in the City. Not to date myself horribly. I don't know what the tweens are watching nowadays. The Gonorrhea Diaries,
girls,
the Rainbow Party Room. Sure. I really don't know. But for Sex in the City, there was never an episode, to my knowledge, and again, I'm not an encyclopedic viewer of this program, but was there ever an episode where Carrie just sat back and was like, I'm making like millions writing a stupid article in New York, wearing all the junk I want, and I got 3 friends that I really like. My life's pretty good. No, the whole time it's
I bet she mentioned that once.
Okay. My recollection of the show was just like,
I feel like it was semi-self-aware,
me
right?
Out and fulfill me this week.
Yeah, it's just we're like neither of us watched. I feel like it definitely had tones that it was self-aware.
I would hope. So again, I after all that happens, where I do everything according to plan, where again my life gets really screwed up, the trajectory of it, and yet I still want to buy into the program and think to myself, I'm getting through college. And
yeah,
I finally do. And
you've put the dots on the piece of paper.
I have my piece of paper that's going to get me happiness. And what does it get me? A job where I'm treated worse than I was in college and potentially worse than I was in high school. Where they really, the way I was treated, they might as well have given me a cookie and an OJ every day at noon and told me to sleep for an hour. Because that was the level of adulthood I was accorded.
15 minutes of exercise.
And so I just said, the hell with it. There's got to be more. And we don't live in Hollywood. So it wasn't really easy for us to say, screw it, I want to act. But I was able to say, screw it, I want to do radio. JFK, my station that has Don and Mike and Howard Stern, is right down the street. So I'm going to quit, and I'm going to do what I can to get on with them. And I quit, And yeah, within a year of bouncing around as a board op, which is just the...
Yeah, what do you do as a board op?
Sure, it's the lowest radio position out there. And as a board op...
Is it still?
Yep. Does not get lower than board op. And you press buttons to turn on microphones, and you make sure all the levels are good and even between all the guests. And you're thinking to yourself right now, why do they screw up the pots every day? Why do they bring down the levels so that the good level has to be found? I can't tell you that. I guess it just differs show to show.
Do you still have to watch to dump any naughty words?
Absolutely.
That's still your job too?
Yep, you're the
that
dump
seems
guy.
like a really important job.
Yeah, and back when radio made any sort of money, there were different guys that
That
handled
seems like
the dump.
something we should be arguing for a higher minimum wage.
Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt, board opping is like the most stressful and demanding job I've
For
held.
sure. If you have to watch for
Not my own.
to dump somebody's
Yeah, exactly.
bad language, that's insane.
I have my own business, don't get me wrong. That's like way more stressful than anything I've had in radio because I'm everything to it. I'm the owner, I'm the operator. But
I've seen it. I've seen it in action.
yes, for radio, for any working with anyone else, yeah, man. If you're not on your game, I'm not like if your girl is sending you photos and you blink and the guest drops the F-bomb, your station could be fined $250K. Like that can, honest to God, because you are looking at some breasts.
That is stressful.
You can get a station shut down.
It's stressful.
And they're paying
honestly,
you $8 an hour to do it.
How often are you getting these pics?
Well, that's yeah.
Because that was your go-to, man.
Yeah, I love that.
Radio's doing good already. Radio has done you very well.
It's a cooler job to say you're working at than the National
You're
Student
like,
Clearinghouse.
I got this job, and people started sending me pictures.
Oh yeah, they put your cell phone out there and it was great. they read it every break.
So how long were you a board op?
I was a board op, station to station. 5 years on and off I did in radio, like professionally. And some of these stations I was able to get on air.
I was going to ask, did you get on?
Yeah, JFK, I was able to, I'm not going to say it was like some lifelong dream. My name wasn't on any marquee, but at JFK, after walking in there the first place and I remember the first time I used the urinal, I was like, I bet Don Geronimo's penis urinated into this very urinal. And that really meant something to me. And occasionally you'd find like Don and Mike junk, hidden away. Like
after combing through George Mason?
Yeah, I found a box full of sex pies and videotape, VHS cassettes. And I remember hearing about those as a kid.
This is dated.
And I don't care, man.
No.
Neither do your two listeners. So it was just a blast. So eventually at JFK, I was affiliated with the show Overtime, the nighttime show. And at this point, JFK was a sports station.
Who's involved with that one?
Bill Rowland, when I first started, was the host, and Danny Rouillet was the co-host.
Oh, yeah.
And halfway through my tenure there, Danny took over the hosting duties. And for a lot of that tenure, I was the in-studio board op, which meant I was parked in front of a mic, and the show would typically start at 11, and by like 10:15, they're like, we can only talk about how bad the Redskins are for so long.
Oh, absolutely.
And my name on the show is Beard.
Well, your voice only gets so hoarse.
Yeah, so they're like, hey, Beard, you want to talk about like Arnold Schwarzenegger movies or something like that? So
Did you really get to do stuff like that?
Yeah, sometimes they'd give me like a 15-minute segment just to kill at the end of the night, and it was
amazing.
It was a rush, man.
Yeah, I wasn't in the area at the time, so I hadn't checked it out. But is there anything that people can check out locally? Is there any kind of archived copies of that?
I would have to ask someone at the station. We used to save the episode because
I think that's something we should do.
Going back to our friends in the FCC, who after Janet Jackson did her boob thing, could fine a station, like I said, $250K per incident or something insane. If someone lodged a complaint against you, and you could not provide evidence to the contrary, guilty until proven innocent, man, you could be fined. Good. Just because some old lady was like, they had an F-bomb contest on
That's not
air,
okay.
and you couldn't say otherwise, you could get fined.
That's backwards.
It was really messed up. No joke.
It really is.
And again, this was a job you made $8 for. You were archiving episodes and running a dump button for a CBS station, part of VI.
That's your job.
And you were making...
You're the first one to go.
The lowliest pay possible. As a child...
You're the first one to get dumped.
That little. Yeah. And I think I was actually paid 10. and everyone else was paid $8 to board up. And so they looked at me
kind of
like,
big man on campus.
oh, I was the blonde cheerleader with the big ones. They were all envious. And I'm like, don't be envious of $10, guys. That's just setting your sights so low in life.
Please.
So, yeah, I was on air on and off for the better part of a year. And
So you got to taste the big life.
a little bit, yeah. It was fun. I mean, again, my name wasn't on any show. There were entire shows they might not go to me, and you're like, well, thanks.
But hey, your name's on a show now.
Yes, the podcast that I've done the whole time, Papa's Basement.
You've been doing it for a long time. When was the transition from when you were at WJFK to when you were doing the podcast? Which, by the way, you can talk about airing live.
In the time, in the early years of the show, I was airing it live from ERA, I guess is the name of. That's your new one.
Yeah, that's
okay.
This one right here.
Yeah, I'm sleepy. I'm trying to remember the name of the Fairfax County Public Access, and I would air it live from that studio. But Papa's Basement started out because you would take the training program, essentially a board-op training program, but they would...
Which you're pretty familiar with.
No, I mean, I learned it through working
at
the
you learned
public
it through
access
this one
station.
first?
Yeah, and via going to the public access station and doing their training there, I was able to put on a resume, I have board-op experience, and that was enough to land me an actual board-op gig.
You followed the right channels.
Yeah, and I'm going to, not really blow any minds here. It's not exactly neural surgery. So you learn to press buttons in one station, you can do it at another. And Papa's Basement was cobbled together by me because I figured I want to be an on-air personality.
Absolutely.
I get a 1 hour a week slot for free at the local station using all this amazing equipment, and it'd be a real shame not to do that and, get your reps in. Like anything else in life, you're not going to get good not doing it.
Exactly. How did you start? How did you know what you want to talk about? It was just going to be talk radio? Did you have maybe like a shtick? Were you going to do heavy metal? Were you going to do... Because I know you were like into heavy metal at the time.
There was never any doubt in my mind what the show was going to be. I was simply going to parrot Howard Stern, Don and Mike. I'm trying to think what else I was listening to at the time. Not the Grease Man. I like the Grease Man, but
that's funny. I was going to say that. I was like, you're going to grease the wheels.
It was like Stern and Don and Mike. There's something magical to me about those guys. Like being local, discussing local things on the show. Yeah, I listened to some Opie and Anthony and Stern, and they would do the same thing, but doing it with New York. I'm like, I can't really relate to your...
That's all local.
Yeah, it was local to them, but like them...
No. Yeah, that's local to here.
Them talking about Bushwicks, I'm like, I don't get that so much.
Yeah.
It's a street. I've got you so far. But Don and Mike would talk about the world's slowest McDonald's right down the road from the station, and I'm like, I go to that McDonald's. It is abominably slow. And yet it had a conveyor belt, so it was all worth it. You would sit there for 5 minutes, but your food ultimately came down a belt. And I know
that's cool to watch.
I know of no other McDonald's that did that.
Oh, I hate convenience.
So
it gets me every time.
But that mic went on, and I in no way wanted to be a music jock, in no way wanted to be a news jock. I wanted to talk about my life, and I wanted to be funny.
Hey guys, sorry to cut the episode a little bit short. Thanks for sticking with us. We're going to finish that episode 2 weeks from now with John Papagiorgio. You've been listening to Comedy in Progress Radio on WERA 96.7. You're listening